Firstly, I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's joined us this lunchtime. We are really delighted that you've taken the time out of your busy days to sort of take a little bit of time for yourself to think about your career and your development and join us and join Oscar on progressing your career. And I won't take away any of his thunder around that topic, but this is part of our upgrade masterclass sessions that we run as part of our Kingston University alumni community, which of course we welcome, you know, our 260,000 plus alumni community to join in different events and happenings and keep updated with Kings at Kingston, but also sort of recognise your lifelong commitment to your ongoing development and learning long after you've maybe passed on through Kingston's doors. So yes, it's fantastic to have you here. I think hopefully you will all have enjoyable time and you'll learn something and take something forward. But also I just wanted to say before we begin, we really do welcome other ideas, other individuals that you may know that you want to hear from on subjects and matters and a variety of things. So please do kind of have that conversation with us if you have good ideas for something you might like to hear and join us on in the future. I am so delighted to welcome Oscar St. Marth here to our Upgrade Masterclass on Progressing Our Career. Oscar did computer information system design back in 1999 when he graduated. I don't want to steal Oscar's thunder about what he's going to talk about, but again, this is something that sort of sometimes comes across with sort of, again, feedback and information. When I spoke to Oscar, I was like, this is perfect. This is, what some people have been asking for. And it's thinking about like how you might consider progressing your career in the sense of like, actually, sometimes you get a little bit, are you focused enough and kind of really at the end goal? Have you got a little bit, have other interruptions in your life and family and, completely different competing priorities meant that you've put your career a bit on the back burner? How do you get that fire lit onto you, maybe not just actually, to find a new job, but also within the roles that you're doing and the opportunities that within organizations bring. As I say, this is part of our lifelong learning commitment to Kingston University alumni, but also just to kind of flag that Kingston University recent graduates have obviously access to our careers support service too. So if you are a recent graduate and you feel inspired, then we can kind of make sure you have the links to kind of go off and make sure you've got your information to hand as part of our careers service too. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Oscar to start your presentation, to do a little bit of introduction on yourself and chat a little bit about progression to career. What I would also say is that we are welcoming, if you had sort of thoughts that you wanted to put in the chat, the Teams chat, do that as you go. We will take questions at the end. We will kind of open up the microphones, and if you wanted to talk on camera or not at the end, that's fantastic. But if you just wanted to sort of comment or make a chat, you can do that in the chat. I know Oscar also has a kind of wonderful Mentimeter going forward as well. So we put a bit of an engagement as well. So don't hide too much there in the background. So thank you very much. Oscar, over to you.
Yeah, thank you and welcome everybody. Great to have you here and great to be here. Part of the Kingston University clan, as we call it. I wanted to kickstart with this, and again, I think whether you're depending on where you are on your journey, whether you're considering the next promotion where you've had some pushback, whether it's time to explore the next role in your current company or moving forward. This is some of the tools and experiences I've come across, and I definitely wanted to share that with you. I always lead with a quote. If you're not where you want to be, do not quit. Sometimes we get feedback and we stall. We don't necessarily look at where the opportunity is, but really it's about reinventing yourself, changing your habits and looking for the areas for where you want to be successful. This is a little bit about my journey. So if you've looked me up at LinkedIn, kind of here you can see Kingston University, and this kind of gives you a guide of the various different roles. This is a tool I use when I've always joined, I'm interviewing or I'm being interviewed. I talk about my journey because most people will only look at your last role or your last level of experience. So you need to bring all of you to the table. So certainly there's an opportunity there to evolve and shape and tell your story in the way you want to share it and share your experiences. What it won't tell you when you look at my LinkedIn is kind of three things. One is prior to Kingston Uni, and how I ended up at Kingston University is quite a strange story. First and foremost, I left school at 17 and left home. So there was a wide gap. I didn't go on and do my A levels straight away, and I didn't do university straight away. I had a completely different career in between that. But one of the things is I used to do a lot of judo, and I used to get up early in the morning and do some training. I used to have my paper round. At 14, 15, the career advisor at the time, when you're going for this career advice, was simply, hey, what do you want to do? And I talked about what my passion's about. And I was in top sets for maths and English, not the best person, but in the top sets at the time. And they were like, hey, yeah, I think you should do a milkman or a postman. Those were the two career guidance I got given off the back of my my session. And actually, I didn't take it negatively at the time. I actually thought, yeah, that sounds feasible. I like to get up early. If I do what I need to do, then I've got the rest of the day to work on my other stuff. So it just tells you the crazy journey I've had and the roles I've had. I'm in cybersecurity. This is my journey. The other one, what was strange was I probably spent the last 10 years leading up to Kingston University as a choreographer and a dancer. So if you were in the 90s and you were looking at a lot of the top pop acts, Eternal and those guys and various other things, you've probably either seen me on TV or you've seen me on stage, or I've choreographed a lot of stuff. So a completely different career. I actually was looking to connect with one of my best mates who just graduated at Kingston Uni. And I happened to be driving past Penryn Road, the Kingston University there, the site there. And I thought, oh, it's like summer. So I thought, oh, I'll go in and have a look. Randomly, I decided to stop my car, walked in. It was pretty empty. And then afterwards, I was walking and I thought, at some point, I thought, this isn't good. Probably people are going to think I'm not in the right place. So I tried to navigate my way out, and I came across a gentleman, and he said, oh, how can I help? And I just panicked. So I was like, oh, I'm just interested in the university. I'm interested in the, what goes on in the classes. And then he went, and I thought he'd leave me alone. He was like, oh, great. What sessions are you into? And I had no idea about Kingston University. I'd never been there before. So I could only think about what my mate had just completed, which was computer information systems and design. So I said, oh, I'm looking at computer information system design. And he goes, oh, great. I'm head of year. Follow me. So I was like, oh my gosh, this lie is getting worse and worse. So I ended up kind of following him into his office, and I'm like, oh, okay, just listen to it and then try and navigate my way out of it. At the end of it, he asked me, what do I do for a living? I said, I'm a choreographer. And so I love creative people. I was like, oh no, this is getting worse. By the time we finished, I ended up signing this paper that and signed me up to do a computer information systems and design course. I didn't even have a computer. So all in all, I was there for about 30 minutes, came out, went to my mates because he was, as I said, celebrating his final year, and they were all waiting for me. Where have you been? I said, oh, I've just been to Kingston University. I walked around and ended up in this situation. And they said, you don't even have a computer. You don't even, I said, yeah, I know. I said, so anyway, I actually followed up on the enrollment. I said, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? And 4 years on, I finished with the 2-1 degree in computer information systems. And then since then I progressed that trajectory in what I do today, which is an executive VP for solutions engineering worldwide. So that's about just over 110 people that I manage currently, plus sales and training enablement. So just tells you that it's a strange journey. Anything can happen, and you've got a story to tell. So my encouragement to you is, when you're talking about career growth, career development, when you're telling your story, find a way to tell your story, because your last role or the current role doesn't depict you. And there's a lot of people that like to know you and how you got there. And I use that as a way of, when I'm talking about, I'll talk about some of the other areas around, when you're talking about curiosity, or when you're talking about commitment, these words, characteristics of who you are, also shape potential, but also creates your branding, and also then gives you the opportunity to differentiate yourself from others who are applying for a similar role. Here, as they said, it's trust this space. There's no judgment here. We're all employees. We're all looking to progress our career forward. And my ask of you is, it's your time. So Just be present, and we can get distracted very easily. So you've asked for this time, so make sure you get something out of it that matters most to you. The agenda. What does success look like for you? I wanted to kick off with that. So I've got a survey for you to engage in. I'm going to talk to you about some tools that I've used and I've coached on that really help start to shape and form. And it may just be adding to what you're already thinking, but it's definitely a way of looking at it, looking at how you progress your career. Some gotchas, some things that don't work out very well, and how do you navigate yourself around that? And then we'll do open Q&A. And at the end of it, hopefully you've got a different perspective. There is no silver bullet to career growth and career development. Every person's different. Every situation is different, whether you're in telecom, retail, manufacturing, IT, technology. It really varies. Education. You've got an opportunity to learn from each other. And then definitely, as I said, there's 4 specific aspects that I wanted to spend a bit more time on. So with that in mind, most people tell you to shut your phone off. I'm actually going to tell you to put your phone on, take a picture of the QR code. There's 2 or 3 questions, but it creates, I wanted to get to know a little bit about you. So if you take a picture of the QR code, and then from there, just give me the thumbs up once you're in there. Or you can go to menti.com and type in that code, and that'll also get you there as well. It's again, very anonymous, but it's a great way that if you're not a talker, like to you have a voice on these forums, then it's a great way of also conveying some questions using this tool. Or as said earlier, you can use the chat down the line. So once you've done that, again, I'll just give it another minute and just put your thumbs up once you've done that. And again, keep your phone on throughout the session, because I'll go back to this survey, so it will become useful towards the end as well. So one of the questions I definitely wanted to learn is about you. So we'd love to know, what one word would you best use to describe what success looks like for you? What one word would you use to best describe what success looks like for you? Okay. And as you type in, you'll hear from your peers as well. Happiness, growth, fulfilled, balance, confident. And these are your words. These are not words you see on paper. This is kind of what you feel is important to your goals and your aspirations. And as you're filling these in, and you can see others filling that in, as you said, you may find, and what you're seeing now is we're not all wired in the same way. We look for different things, and we describe success in a very different way from our perspective. One of the critical elements is that it's interesting here, no one has said career progression, and we're outside we've got one saying growth, but a lot of it is how you feel internally. So when you start to think about what you want to do in your career, the goals, remember these words that you're writing down that matters most to you. It's about what does satisfaction mean to you? What does happiness mean to you? You need to be specific with the wording that you're using, and then look for opportunities or growth or roles that tie into your core values. What you're describing here is your core value. It's not an aspiration. It's actually, for the large part of it, being happy in what you do. Your happiness is different to the next person. So being content, being balanced, that's very different and very unique to you. So you have to have the ability to convey that and explain that and look for opportunities that drive that element. One other question I wanted to ask, I'm always looking to upgrade my phone, being a technology advocate. Question for you, what are your top 2 must-have features for you to upgrade your mobile phone? So just put 2. If you were looking to upgrade your phone tomorrow, what are the top 2 features you would look for that matters most to you? And you can put 2 responses in there as well, using the same memory and a camera. Good. Yeah. Data, size. Yeah. Again, if money was no object, what are the top 2 things that you look for in your phone? And I use this analogy in a presentation I did a few months back with a broad audience on stage, and it was interesting for a couple of reasons. And as you can see, as you start to build this picture, what's interesting is that very few have said to make phone calls, right? So the expectation, therefore, is it comes with the phone. Making phone calls basically is part of that phone. You don't expect it not to make phone calls, which is really interesting from that size of things. So the other thing is, again, you could equally, you're looking for other functions within that phone to compensate. So you don't want a separate camera. You don't want a separate way of putting memory in. You want to have this stuff all built in to the single device. And when you start to look at the journey, I was presenting, I said a few months ago on this, if you start thinking about individual products, the way we buy products, we bought individual devices to solve unique problems. 2015, you start to see some convergence of some of these technologies coming together. And where we are now is what you're asking for. I want my phone to be doing multiple things. That's exactly the same way that we're now seeing, where we're now perceiving what high performance looks like in an individual. We're not just looking at, employees are not just looking at one thing and saying that person needs to be just doing this function or just pass this course or have this mindset or this project. They're actually looking for you to have multiple skills and multiple competencies in various different areas. And it's why you get hired, believe it or not, because someone's seen something in you around one of those skills. And it's also why they kind of look for that similar type of competency when you're looking to get promoted or when you're looking to apply for different roles. So I put this thing together here. This is kind of my framework that I've used a few times before. And over the years, I've realized that this is a tool you can use, but also just a reference point for you when you think about where you are today and where you want to get to. So these areas here are really what I've seen as core competencies. Your knowledge, skills, and competency about how you go about doing your job is key. Whatever your function is, whatever your role is, having that knowledge and the ability to apply that is key. And if you mark yourself at a 10, you can start to figure out if 10 was the top, 0 at the bottom. Where are you in your current role from 1 to 10? How would you score yourself? And if you said you're an 8, then what does that mean by an 8? And how do you get to a 9? So it's a great way of increasing your competency or your skill around these areas. And also there's an opportunity I'll talk to you about how it applies to career growth and aspiration. If you've got great knowledge, but you're struggling to communicate effectively to your peers, to your colleagues, to your customers, to your partners, then this can actually hinder your ability to be successful, or even your current role or future roles as well. So as you go down here, you've got the opportunity to leadership and influence isn't necessarily about management, but it's about how you show up. Do people follow you when you have an idea? Do you resonate with others? Are you able to influence others, whether you're in a management role or otherwise? Business acumen is what you're doing. Does it matter to the business? Do you understand the business, the environment that you're in, to be able to apply those skills in a meaningful way? Corporate responsibility is about trust. So do they trust you to do the right thing when it matters? And stakeholder management probably is about 30% of this area as well. There's a whole section on connecting with others, both in terms of your peers, your management team, but also other relationships, networking that you want to establish. If you were applying for a role that wasn't in your current job and was with a different manager, then having a relationship, building, connecting with someone who is the hiring manager in another role is absolutely key. Connecting with people who do that job today is absolutely key. So you have the ability to put together this outline. I'll share this with you so you don't need to write it down or take pictures of it. It's a great way of understanding where you are today out of 10 and then where the gap is. And then that allows you to at least grow within your current role, have that work-life balance you talked about. How do I become happy in my role? And you can sit down with your manager and go through that. If you're looking to then grow and do a different role or look to get to the next level within your current position or a new position, it also, you have to also think about the competencies that are required for that role and then say, have I got the competencies for that role? People sometimes think that they've got competencies in their current role and that's good enough for the next role. There's a job description for what you're trying to apply for. You can apply the same competencies and then look at where your strengths and where your gaps are, and then start to build and work towards that. The other two that I see derailers or can make a difference is being proactive. If you're always waiting for someone to tell you what to do, you're going to struggle to be successful in your role. People look for individuals to be proactive, which is on the left-hand side. And I added this in the last couple of days. And the other one is sense of urgency. When you have to do something, how quickly can you get on top of it, execute on what you said you're going to do, and be fully committed? What isn't on here is hardworking. A bit like the phone scenario. It's expected that you're working hard. There's none of us ever said in an interview, I'm going to work, 9 to 5. I'm going to do my average job. I'm not going to do anything more than what I need to do. You may be able to rely or may not be able to rely on me. These are table stakes for your role. When you do a good job, that's another key element that people say, well, I've done a good job, I should be promoted. You're supposed to do a good job in your current role. That's kind of what we all get paid to do. So being in, basically doing a good job, hard working. I've been here for 5 years and I'm doing the same thing. I'm looking for a new opportunity. If you're not growing in these areas, then fundamentally there's a reason why you may get overlooked in certain scenarios. So this is a great way of validating where your current skills are. And even if just you're trying to get better in what you're doing today, or you're looking to get to the next level, it's a great way of using this tool and just getting a scoring out of 10 and marking yourself, and then self-market, and then sharing that with others. Emotional maturity is the final piece in how you show up, how you communicate, how you manage. Most people talk about working with your strengths. The gap is emotional maturity comes out more when you've got challenges and you've got weaknesses and you've got areas where you need to, you don't have quite the skill and the competency. So you also need to really balance that in how you take feedback very well, how you communicate effectively, how you prepare for these conversations to happen. So this is a great way of using this tool from that side of things. It's also a great way of actually sharing that with others in terms of having the conversation around, do they perceive you, how you perceive yourself? Does the managers perceive you in the same way? If you're saying I'm an 8 out of 10 in knowledge, skills, and competency, does the manager see you in that way? If they say that, hey, I've got a good grasp of the business and the area of responsibility, does the manager see you that way? And if not, where's the gap and how do you work on those gaps? So it's a great way of saying, it's a much more mature way than just saying that person's a great individual or a great teacher or a great advocate of what they do, or they always do things on time. You need to start nailing down what specific traits that talk to your strengths that you need to continue to do, and where are the areas that you need to improve on. And you need to get that outside in perspective, not just, hey, I think I'm great at what I do. You need to constantly seek external feedback, and that's with that external management. The other one is professional versus personal. It comes up quite a bit. Feedback is, we love good feedback, but when feedback isn't so great, we tend to react to it and not necessarily always in a positive way. So there are 4 areas that I kind of use here from Noel Birch is framework. Conscious competence is stuff that you already know, you're doing a fantastic job at, you know where your strengths are and you're operating in that space. Consciously incompetence, in the way I've used this, tends to be about things that I know I'm not very good at, but I can navigate my way around it. I can certainly understand and I can certainly improve on it. Unconsciously competence, Noel describes this in a slightly different way as habits. The way I would look at this is that I've found over the years, these are things that you have traits of that you don't necessarily value, but the people around you value. So it could be when John shows up, he's reliable. So you'll find your friends, your family will, even peers will talk about this. Hey, they're always on time. They're always optimistic. They're always smiling. They're always passionate. They're always helping others. These are things that you don't necessarily talk about, but I found it helps describe your character. So one of the things I've been doing when coaching others is go and actually talk to your best friend. Why is that person your best friend? What do they find most valuable to you? If this is pretty much around your role in your job, this will be around your characteristics and your strengths. And you can bring that into a conversation when people say, hey, what do you like as a person when you're being interviewed? You can absolutely say, well, here's what I hear from others about my characteristics. So here's my competency. Here's what I'm very good at. Here's not what I'm not very good at. But here's what I hear other people say, good or bad. Here's the things that they've said about me and how I show up. This one here is the red, which is the unconsciously incompetent. This is a real challenge where you have some blind spots like we all do. And it's really, this is where it's about constant seeking of feedback. Even if you think you're doing all the right things, you may find the way that other person's received it has not been very, very positive. And that can affect down the line, you applying for the role and someone say, oh yeah, this person doesn't know what they're doing. So you have to also constantly look at feedback. Are you doing the right things? And you have to think about taking the feedback professionally and not personally. If you take it personally, next time around, people probably won't give you feedback, or they'll just discard the feedback, or they'll say, hey, they'll try and give you a warm response. And you need the you need to have that transparent feedback so that you can figure out where's the areas that's working very well and where's the specific areas where you need to improve as well. Focus on what you can control. So success tends to be, we always think of success as, I've been here 5 years, I want my next role. I've been here another 3 years, I want the next role. This is kind of what we hope success is. Chances are we all end up with some setbacks in what we do, and it's more around what it really looks like. You never intend, why I told you my story about Kingston Uni, I never intended to be a global VP of a cybersecurity organization. If you asked me that, I couldn't tell you that at all. I had a completely different view in terms of where I wanted to aspire to at the time, and based on my perspective and my circumstances. So I think you just need to be open-minded that sometimes the path that you're taking may still get you to where you need to get to, sometimes quicker, sometimes a little bit slower, sometimes just different. And it's about exploring that potential, being open to the fact that career growth, career path, career development is never a straight line. And as you can see from when I showed you at the very beginning, my career goals and aspirations, I've done various different roles and I've taken advantage of various different opportunities that have come my way to build my competency in situations where I'm a lot more comfortable to talk through it, navigate my way through it. I may not have all the skills, but I understand how to go from A to B in a particular situation in the role, in my functional area. So, and the one area I would say to you, I've come across this before. We always use SWOT analysis when we're trying to measure the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I use this, I picked this up, if you've studied, this PEST comes up as well: political, economical, social, technical. I apply this as well. So, for example, you might find if your company is going through redundancies at a particular time, then it's probably not very smart of them to start to announce at the same breath, we're going to promote so-and-so person as well as part of that story. They may hold off for a few weeks because of the sensitivity of that conversation. So it's not always about you being, hey, am I doing the right things? When can I get promoted? You also have to look at the function and the you're operating and where you are in your organization. Similar thing if economic, we absolutely want to do this. If you work for smaller organizations, you may find that they just don't have the budget at that particular time to support. They want to give you the title, but they want to give you some recognition that goes with it. So again, you have to think about there's areas that will fall outside of your direct control. You may not even get told about this stuff. It may just be a reason for not now, or can we push this out by a few months? But it is important to have that dialogue and have that conversation and say, is it about me? Is there a gap in my skills and competency and technology? Is it about the company I'm working for? And during this period, I come back to emotional maturity. If you switch off and you go into a meltdown, then they go, oh, that's why we didn't promote them. I'm glad we waited. If you're able to work with the company, continue to show a level of resilience, continue to show up at your best, and continue to drive forward with the organization, they'll continue to support your career growth, your career development, your career path, and your success story. So the PEST is definitely something that I try and keep in check. I can work really hard, pass all my exams, do all the projects, execute as well as I can be, and there's things outside of my control that can push me back. And I've certainly had, there's some stories around, I haven't always had a, hey, you know, been I never got to a job where every time I've got to an interview, I'm the perfect candidate, and I've always got jobs in interviews. I've had my setbacks, both internally in terms of being promoted, but also applying for a role and not getting the role this time around. So you will see that. And first, you're trying, the narrative is always you look in the mirror and people always look at what you could do differently. I think that's important, but also recognize some of those things are just outside of your control. And therefore, it's really about focusing on getting up the next day, focus on the things that you can control and you can directly influence around that. And that's an area that I would definitely, I'm emphasizing this because it's really important. We don't talk about it enough, but it's really important to recognize that life isn't a straightforward, there's no silver bullet, no matter what mentor or coach you have around that. It is practice, it is consistency. And actually some of the areas where you haven't been successful creates the baseline for you to grow and develop and figure out what to change and what to adjust. And so part of that, your journey, my journey, everybody's journey is about going through that. That's life. And I think we should be talking more about that and be comfortable with that scenario. As we look ahead into the fourth one, prepare for your next role and opportunity. This one I wanted to push out. So I think I've got this right, but I am going to ask, when was Kingston University founded? When was Kingston University founded? And one of the things I call this out for is it's not a matter of being right or wrong as such, but it is about preparing for your next opportunity. It's interesting. I didn't know this answer until I was building this deck, and I thought, oh, let me go find out and ask. And actually is, for those of you who are putting the answers in, it's 1899 was actually the original foundations of Kingston University from that side of things. So, and the reason why I call it out, again, this is anonymous feedback, so it's just more importantly here, but it's about these things. Time and time again, people are, when I have individuals who are saying, hey, I want to get promoted, or am I doing the right things, or I should be the next, I should be the next, I want to do the next role, I should get the next promotion. A lot of times you say, have you got a development plan? And they go, oh, I don't have a development plan. I've worked really hard. I've been here a number of years. So they haven't been working on their skills or their competencies or sharing what they're investing their time in as well. You either find it out much later on, and therefore us as leaders miss an opportunity to hire someone who's been working extremely hard because they haven't shared their plan, or they've got no plan at all. And they're just hoping through hard work and share graph, they're going to get there, which I said to you, we look for more than one thing on our phones. It's the same way in life. So have a plan and make sure that you're sharing that plan with others and they're invested in your success as well as yourself. The other one I get a lot of is, certainly for people who've been in jobs, have you read the job description, the one that you're actually applying for? Sometimes we're already an internal employee. We assume there's a level of trust. People know who we are. We're bound to be the right candidate for the role. And then you find an external person come in and take that opportunity, or you find they promote someone else. So again, going back to that skills that I talked about, figuring out where you are and where you need to get to for the role that you're applying for, not the current role. The role that you're applying for is key. The other one is, if you're not hitting the mark, or you don't feel you're not hitting the characteristics of the role, the best way to look at that is to take a look at the job descriptions and look at the next role that's there, and then start to build. If you're thinking about, hey, how do I want to get to the next level, get the next job, to get the job description, start mapping where your skills are, working with your manager, thinking through that. If you're a student, it's exactly the same. Don't just apply for the things that matter most to you. Look at the characteristics and what you bring to the role and start to break down that job description. And there may be 8 things on there. I guarantee you there is 2 or 3 things that every employee is specifically looking for. And if you can tie in and talk to those two or three things with the time that you've got available, it certainly gets you closer to that goal. Have you connected with sponsors and stakeholders? So one of the things you can do using your LinkedIn profile or other profiles is connect with people on LinkedIn, find out what they like doing. Are they speaking at a particular seminar? Are they going to a particular event? So make sure that you're investing time in your network and expanding your network so that people like to hire with people they know. So there's a load of area called references. When you go, oh, I know this person, they're a good individual. That does amount to a percentage or an input in how we make decisions in terms of that trust. So if I trust Monica trusts Sarah, then chances are, okay, I'll actually see Sarah because I trust what Monica's saying to me. So your relationships and networking is key. If you're a student, start reaching out, start looking for building your network. If you're already employed, start continuing to nurture and continue to invest in your network, not only your current one, but also every year try and build relationships with other, sometimes competitors, competitive products, competitive solutions, competitive industries, or same industry but a different sector. Start to seek out those areas. And that ties to projects and experiences where you're trying to elevate yourself, look for opportunities to grow, to shine, to raise your brand in your current role. They may not be core to your job, but it's definitely an opportunity for you to learn and grow and demonstrate things that you're doing outside of your role as an opportunity to grow. Practice. This is the one thing I would say none of us do very well, or I've seen that people show up. We interview once for our role the first time we join a company, and then we stop practicing these skills. And then when we get promoted, if you're lucky enough to get promoted, great. But chances are, if you're applying for a role and you've got internal and external candidates and other people are applying for the role, sometimes your peers, you have to start practicing your interview skills. Update your resume, not just in time, like make sure you have an updated resume all the time. Make sure that you're actually practicing those interview skills, either through your network with other colleagues or friends, and get them to walk them through the job description that you're applying. Too many times people show up, they haven't practiced their interviews, and that's where they fail. They've got the competency, they've got the energy, they've got the experience to do the role, but they fail to communicate their brand. They fail to get through their interview stage, and they fail to bring the right type of characteristics to that interview. And then finally, have you written up your success stories? Kind of what I showed to you about my journey. People are looking for, in the time that you're doing your interviews or in the time you're having conversations about why you think you're the right individual to be promoted or the next role, you need to be talking about things that you've done, things that you've achieved that matter to the organization or the function or the team that you work for. So as you go throughout the year, have a calendar, a diary or a list of items that you track, the things that you've seen that where you've received accolades, strong recognition, project success. Make sure you good feedback from managers, from executives, from peers. Make sure you write those down and build a picture so that at the end of the year, when you're doing performance reviews, you can incorporate that into your feedback, and it also then gets you closer to that next level. Finally, I would say that how you go about getting to the next level. If your managers aren't asking you for conversations, remember it's personal development. I put some words here, but you could say something like, I would like to get to the next level as a principal or as a senior person of X. Can I ask what projects could I start getting involved in to better support the business or increase the value of my team as well? So you can find the right words that matter to you. But rather than saying, I want to earn more money, I want my promotion because I want to earn more money, I want my promotion because it's just personal to me, you have to relate back to the business. What is the business going to get out of it by also elevating you into this next opportunity, especially if there's others that applied? So figure out the wording that you want to use that best describes what you want to get out of it, and be intentional. Like, I definitely want to get promoted. I'd like to have an opportunity to get promoted, and I'd love the opportunity to get in other projects that help the business and also help my career growth and my career development. People will see that as very positive. based on the feedback that they give you, it also tells you a lot about whether they see you're already doing the right things and you're on the fast track path. If they start talking about your characteristics, say, hey, you need to listen more, you need to communicate more effectively, then that's about a gap in your current role, as not necessarily about working towards the next role. Those are all good things, but you'll find they're either blockers, which you need to tackle, or they're building blocks, which you need to build on to get to the next role. And finally, on the left-hand side, you'll hear this term. I came across it a few years ago, fail fast. We all do. When you're learning to grasp something and you don't quite have the skill set, either you put your best foot forward in an interview and you didn't get the role, or you studied for something you didn't quite pass it, or you find you weren't the right candidate for the role in that area, or you're leaning on a project and it's not delivering the results. Don't dwell on it. We all go through a scenario of failing. It's actually a great opportunity for you to learn. And one of the areas that I've learned over the years is to try and take that feedback and think of it as okay, that's now one less path I know that path doesn't work, so let me go try something else, a different path. So I try not to spend hours, days, weeks thinking about what wasn't successful. I try and switch and just say, okay, that's great. I now know that path doesn't work. How do I now pivot to a new path and create a new path for the direction I need to go in? So fail fast is absolutely a key element of you moving forward, getting that, as some of you said, work-life balance, being happy. You've got to move past, not being, life isn't about being successful everywhere. We don't talk about it enough. But I'm pretty certain that, you go through life, you're going to have your obstacles. It's not always about you. It's not because you didn't always do the right things. As I said, sometimes it's about there are other factors outside of your control. So with all that in mind, and the analogy I always use, I started looking at the US have got like presidency and fake news and a bunch of other things going on at the moment. But if you start looking at your most famous celebrity that you watch, you follow, you track, they'll always have their followers, and they'll always have people who just don't like them, or don't like their music, or don't like what they do, or don't like their character. So if you think at that level, is good and bad, and they can't influence that. It's the same with what you do in your role. There's always people that are going to like what you do, and there's always people that are not going to like what you do. It cannot be 100% about you. So you have to move forward quickly. Recognize that you could be doing all the right things and people still don't value what you bring to the table. Just make the adjustment and make it very quickly. So with that in mind, I wanted to conclude by just saying, look, it's a different perspective on career growth. Hopefully there were some things in there that mattered to you, and you started to pick up either things that you're doing well and you wanted to just continue to do that, or you've got some value out of that. I've talked about the 4 peer insights: competency and readiness. You need to think about not just being one thing, not just being a camera or fax machine or whatever. You need to think about the breadth of your skills and technology coming together. Taking feedback professionally, not personally. We all take things personally, but how do you respond in a professional way? Focus on what you can control, because as I said, there are things that are going to be outside your control. When I talked about the pest is a nice, easy way. And how do you prepare for the next role? Think about the first time you applied for your first role. That's how you should be applying for internal roles as well. Do not rely on the person knows me, I'm hardworking, because if you've got other peers who are applying for the same position, they're working just as hard, they know the manager just as well. So you've got to start to prepare for those elements, because you have a window of 30-40 minutes in that interview to show your best, and they're not going to see everything you've done in the last year, 2-3 years in your current company. Same thing if you're a student. There's lots of students out there looking for their first opportunity, first role. So again, it's a great way for how do I best prepare and put the time and energy required to be successful in that scenario. I put some books down. The one that comes up quite a lot is Who Moved My Cheese. There's a YouTube on it, or a book as well, by Spencer Johnson. It's a great way of just probably take you like half an hour to read the book in its entirety or watch a 10-minute video. But it's a great way to reflect and take some time and think about how you want to grow. There's lots of other talks out there. I follow ET a lot, just motivation. Brendan Burchard is another one that I've been picking up on around high performance. But invest time in is where I'm going to, whether you've got your own style and your own way of learning and reading audiobooks, or you like reading. It's the same thing here. Make sure that you're investing time in yourself and thinking about how you can grow, how you can pivot, how you can do things differently. How many times should you try? Sometime I found this literally 2 days ago by Anna Vital. She was just sharing the amount of times people have failed. You know, what they've done. Colonel Sanders, who just started KFC, was turned down when he tried selling his fried chicken recipe and where he is today. So there's a great way of just showing that even people that we admire and we look at in what they've been successful at, Steven Spielberg and so forth, have all had setbacks. And it's about how you pivot, how you fail fast, and how you're able to move over and just be comfortable with it. And then I'll finish off with this. I follow ET a lot. When adversity happens, most people are going to quit. That's just where we are. We get down on ourselves. I think the one thing you can do is persevere, be more resilient, and then focus on the things that you can control and you can influence. With that in mind, thank you again for your time. Hopefully it was informative in the time that we had available. There's lots of subjects around this area. I did put an opportunity to ask any questions. You can use the chat, or you can just ask it openly and just do it vocally, and I'll hand it back over to the team here and be open to any questions.
Oh, thank you so much, Oscar. I know you said you were going to share this, but I've probably scribbled about 4 or 5 pages of notes. Just sort of like, right, I need to do this. Obviously, if you want to put your questions in the Menti, please do. I think we'll also allow the chat, so if you wanted to raise your hand and speak, sure, you can do that as well. Any questions, and obviously don't have to be going to be specific examples or maybe kind of advice you're seeking, or actually anything you just wanted to clarify from Oscar's presentation. So yeah, that moment of like, who's going to ask the questions?
Or if you just want to comment, that's also fine.
Yeah,
you're more than doing that.
While people may be having a little bit of a think, I had a little bit of a question, actually going back to your presentation where you looked at those, that lovely circle of you kind of had your knowledge, sure, and skills at the top, sure, and then you had your different kind of things going around that. And you mentioned that stakeholder management was, sure, around about 30%.
Yeah.
Of the time of all those different competencies. So it's sort of, is there a way you think, like, actually as a weight and priorities that you'd like to sort of on that circle, like, what, obviously they're all important, but it just sort of jumped out at me. It's one of the most trickiest things to be doing, really, is sort of manage, stakeholders above you, below you, outside, internally, externally. So yeah, just maybe kind of a bit more reflection on that.
Yeah, by nature, we love, like, we trust. If we have a trust with someone and they say this person's a trusted individual, when you're hiring as a manager, you tend to rely on, you want to build a network of people that you trust and can work with. So if someone knows someone, half the time in the last few years when I've got an opportunity to either be promoted or to get another role, I never applied. It's someone's reaching out to me and saying, hey, I think there's an opportunity. Even in my last role, I was in the US and someone said, hey, there's an opportunity that's appeared at Sonic Wall. And because that person was trusted, it got my foot in the door and it differentiated me from the other 50, 60, 70, 90 people that were applying. So, and sometimes when we're in the role, we forget, we're so busy doing our day job, we don't put our head up and think about nurturing those relationships, nurturing those execs. And the funny story is, when I joined Morse, it's one of my first roles I did. It was about 2 weeks later, the CEO was presenting on stage, and afterwards he finished. I remember him saying, "Is my door was always open, right?" And I was a bit bold and curious, as I said, curiosity. So, and he had this big glass door at the end of this office at the time, massive room, and everybody can see into it. So I knocked on his door, like most junior person in, and I said, Duncan, do you mind if I come in? And he went, sure. He said, how can I help? I said, well, you said your door's always open, so Can I come in? And he said, yeah, sure. And I just asked him like one or two questions, and he started to explain, what matters most to him, where he's trying to take the company and so forth. 90% of it, honestly, I didn't understand the language, the context. I didn't have the business acumen. But I always remember to listen carefully and then repeat the last sentence, say, okay, could you tell me more? And I finished off with, hey, could you recommend a book that you think would be useful for me to read? And he gave me a couple of books. I said, oh, great. And I said, do you mind if I come back and talk to you about it? Sure. Fast track on. When I left the company like 4 or 5 years later, Duncan was the one at the bar buying me drinks to wish me well in my next opportunity. And I can still reach out to him today, almost 25, 30 years later. So I think networking plays a key part of that. If people trust you, they tend to have a bit more flexibility. They tend to get who you are, and they tend to give you honest feedback. If they don't have a trust, they don't have a relationship, you can find yourself applying for roles. And again, you can have all the skills and competency in the world, but relationship plays a key part. No one really talks about it, but it is really important. I've also not got a role because I thought I had one relationship. And even though I was the best candidate, it was clear on all the numbers and guidelines. There was a political element to it. And also, it was also about the type of relationship I had with the person who was one of the critical people who were making that decision to hire. And I didn't get my promotion at that time for that area, even though, everywhere else you looked, I was the outstanding candidate.
Yeah, it's such a key factor. I think, Claire, did you waved, or you had your hand raised? Did you have a question that was in the chat? I think you might be able to enable your microphone if you wanted to on your speaker. If not, then you can put it in the chat, or you're just waving. I think it might be a hand raise, but maybe because things weren't working. But if you did want to, I think you can you come on. If not, there's been lots of lovely comments, and actually, yeah, the really helpful thinking about the idea of keeping a record of a development plan. And it's really hard to remember all the successes, including minor ones. I've been trying to do that as well, of just even like a weekly 3 or 4 point list of what I've achieved that week, because it's really I mean, even if you're not kind of thinking like, actually want to progress, you're just doing your proposal process and other things that are coming up as within organizations. We sit there and go, what have I done this year? How have I spent X number of hours in the working week and not feel like I've achieved anything? So yeah, I sort of highly recommend that. And then I think someone else have
got a hand. I think Amanda
did you have your hands up as well as Amanda? Did you want to?
I was trying to thumbs up that. I thought that was great. Sorry.
So super. I think there was also a question, I think from Amanda too. Is there value in using the Kingston alumni using the alumni network, LinkedIn reunions, in this way to build trust and get a foot in the door and nurture these relationships? If so, how can this be encouraged and seen as a positive tactic of KU network? Very good question, Amanda. I'd actually like to maybe looking at LinkedIn, in particular in terms you talked about network building, and there are some very good networkers on social media and LinkedIn, and there's others who kind of shy away from that. How do you use LinkedIn, Oscar, in terms of sort of building that network, showing your competencies, progressing your career? Is there a happy medium of not sort of shouting too much, or do you just actually have to do that and kind of be visible?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. So two things. It's strange. The first thing is I'm not a fan of social media. I don't like my life spread out on Facebook and so forth. And actually, if you look at my Facebook carefully, you won't see too much information on there. From a LinkedIn perspective, it's a window into how you bring your skills, characteristics to the role. It's one of the few places that potential employers can look at and say, as they're exploring what's out there, they tend to use that as one platform, one tool. So having your picture up, talking about things that you're passionate about, that are relative to the role, and again, an opportunity to raise your brand. People associate that with trust. Like there's a lot of celebrities that we don't know, we've never met before, but we have an association with that. We have a trust with that. Or we go out and we say, if you saw the Nike sign, it just says, just do it. You know what the logo meant. You have an association, affiliation. We go to the same, we buy the same, there's most people when they're shopping, they'll go to the same shop that they're familiar with, and we like familiarity. So it's exactly the same as from a personal perspective. Having someone who's out there, who's visible, sharing some thoughts, sharing ideas. What you're looking for is individuals who are standing out a little bit more. And it's really hard if that's not your comfort zone. But I'd encourage you to. It's definitely one that you have to build your network on, especially post-COVID, where there isn't an opportunity. People aren't meeting daily in the offices and so forth. So it's a great way, and especially if you're more of an introvert and you don't necessarily like to socially network all the time, then building a social media presence is key. You don't need to go full out, but you definitely need to be in touch. It's a great way of building a network, great way of finding out what's going on, but a great way of learning things, maybe other things that you don't have a core competency or skill at today. And definitely it's a great way of you just staying in touch and staying connected. So that's where I would use LinkedIn. The other one is if you just search Kingston University, and then you can see people who've joined, and you can just say, hey, I noticed you went to the same Kingston University. I'd love to connect with you. That's all you need to say. Most people would say yes, and they'll connect with you. Or I'm in the same retail business as you, or in manufacturing or education. Most people say yes, and they connect with you. And then you can start to follow them, build a network, look at what they're reading, and then expand your knowledge and skill and capability. So it's a great window of self-learning in your own time, and you can control that rather than it being forced upon you.
Well, thank you very much for flagging that, because that's a good, nice segue into flagging our LinkedIn, Kingston University LinkedIn group for alumni, which you can request to join. We'll get that link in the chat as well. So that gives you sort of a bit of I think maybe 23,000 on that group, and you can just, directly message people on that, all sorts of industries. But likewise, if there's someone there you think, oh, I would like to find someone an X. Often we do have those requests, and we have so many alumni like Oscar who are willing to help and support their fellow alumni from Kingston. So yeah, good, nice. I do my job for me. nice segment in promoting that. But I think, yeah, those relationships are vital, and I think obviously taking that time as you're while also at university. I know there's a few handful of students here as well. The networks you're building now, and the activities and the societies, the networks with your lecturers, and the connections you'll be making, the opportunities you have to meet people from employers to careers fairs to these opportunities. It's like absolutely take the opportunity to build that networks right from the get-go as well.
And people like that connection. Like there's a colleague of mine who works in California, and I met him, and then I looked him up on LinkedIn and didn't realize he went to Kingston University as well. So the first half an hour we actually spent time talking about what he did at Kingston University. Different age group, he was a lot older than me, but it was just the fact that we connected over the fact that we went to the same university. And that's an area that it's a great opportunity for you to start building that relationship and that connection, because we're not always comfortable around telling stories and being comfortable around talking to people. So that's another way of finding things that whether they follow a certain football team or sports or interests that are similar to you or very similar, it's a great way of opening to, hey, I noticed you follow X, Y, and Z. Is that any good? It's not my thing, but can you tell me more about it? People then spend the next 15 minutes telling you about their passion or their interest, and that's another way of building connection. It also says that you're interested in them and listening.
Yeah, building that rapport and relationships from the get-go. I'm just looking through any other. Oh, so you've got another question there. What's one action you plan to do differently from today? That's a fantastic question to the group.
Yeah, and I would say, and the reason why I say that, and again, it's for you don't have to push it out there, but you don't want to have these sessions where you spend an hour of your precious time and then you put it to the back burner, and you're so busy doing the day job that you miss taking the action. So I think my encouragement to you is be intentional, write it down, and then follow through on it. Too many people don't follow through on their actions, and then they wonder why we only have one life. Time for me is one of the most important things. It's one of those things you can never get back. So while it's still warm in your head, while you're still thinking about it, take an hour, write some thoughts down, and then just execute one of those things that you've written down that you think would help you. And if there's one thing and if you can then say, hey, in a year's time from now, drop me a note on LinkedIn, hey, I took this action and this is where it's helped me, or helped me realize where I need to be and where I don't need to be, or promote. That's a great success story. And maybe you're the next person that talks in a year's time on this, and you're presenting back, hey, I sat in on Oz's course, this is the action I did, and I want to share my story. That's a great way of other people learning from each other, and a great way for us to learn from each other.
Well, perfectly timed at 1 o'clock there. So again, I just want to say a really big thank you to Oscar. This has been incredible. I could carry on here for many, and I know you can do a lot longer presentations, and this, you know, your years of experience in supporting your teams and yourself and your incredible career has just really shone through here. I know there's going to be so many people who get a lot out of this, and we'll be sharing this. We are, as I said at the beginning, we have recorded this, so we'll be sharing this not only to those here, but also to those who couldn't attend in the end, and also the wider alumni community as well. So they'll have a chance to sort of catch up and pick up and, you know, check back on what you've done. But it's really great, and I think this is just a real emphasis, kind of, you know, the value and the expertise that is in our community. There is so much that we can draw on from each other. So thank you. Thank you all again for attending. Some really great points that are coming up from what actions you're, you know, coming up here. You know, lots of things. Obviously, I can't hold you to account because I don't know who you are, but you know who you are. So that's the main thing. And yeah, it's great. Any final thoughts, Oscar?
Yeah, just, you know, like I said, it's no silver bullet. No one has all the right answers for you. But I think you just got to keep learning, pick the things that matter most to you. If you hear it, it sounds like it's an aha moment for you, run with it. And I said, fail fast. Life isn't perfect, and you're going to have your setbacks. People are going to pull you off in a different direction. Your goal is just to stay on track, be true to yourself, and, you know, have fun doing it. And Kingston University, however I got there, gave me I'm very proud of it. I can look back now, and it shaped the next 20-25 years of my career. So yeah, and I had to stay curious. So definitely thanking Kingston University for investing in me, and all the lecturers that spent time with me, and same for you. If you get an opportunity to share your thoughts, your success stories with others, or your experience, good and bad, please do so with others, because there's always someone looking to learn and looking to grow and looking to get better. So thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts and ideas with this group.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. Hope you're all off to enjoy your lunch. Take care now. Thanks, Oscar.
Right,
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.